Hey everybody, what is up? It's the Tominator, and today I kind of wanted to do the opposite of what I did in my last video, because there I spoke about some of the more positive surprises of the show. The guys who really hit the mark and kind of overachieved. But here I wanted to speak about some of the more disappointing outcomes. The first of which was this gentleman right here, Max Charles. His conditioning was so off, man. It looked like he was guest posing, and as a result, he finished dead last. And what's so disappointing about this is that this dude took third last year at this show, if you can believe it. I mean, he beat the likes of Lionel Bayeki, who was top 6 this year. So that should tell you something right there. If you go back and watch him in the 2017 Arnold Classic, the difference in quality in his physique is just staggering. So I don't know what happened, if something in his prep went horribly wrong or what have you. Even the commentators Sean Ray and Kai Green seemed to be kind of grasping at straws, searching for an explanation. Suggesting that maybe he was just biding his time, waiting to peak at a later show down the road. But I'm not so sure about that, because his name isn't on the list for the Arnold Classic Australia, so I'm not sure what other show he could be holding out for. So yeah, guys, Max Charles was way off the mark here, and it's too bad because this guy is massive and has some impressive features with the big arms and delts and everything, and he could have potentially cracked the top 6 even, or been just outside if he came in properly conditioned like he usually does. Okay, so a couple of honorable mentions here are Cedric McMillan. I know he finished third, which by all accounts is a very good placing and better than I thought he'd do. But once again, Cedric failed to really bring his A game. This was an 80 to 90% Cedric, but truth be told, I would have had him no higher than fourth. I think the only reason he placed ahead of Rolly Winkler is because Cedric has clout here now at the Arnold, being as he is the defending champion and Arnold's chosen one, so to say. See, there's Arnold right there taking pictures with his boy. So I think that the judges may have favored Cedric just a little bit here. Of course, his athleticism can't be denied, so you got to count that as well. But you can't be too disappointed if you wind up in third in a competition this stacked, where the only bodybuilders ahead of you are the timeless legend they call the Blade, who's won this show 5 times over, and the man who just placed third at the Mr. Olympia, William Bonac. Plus, let's be real here, the ability to come in consistently conditioned has never been Cedric's forte. He has a history of disappointing us in that regard, so it's really not that surprising, so I can't really say it was a huge disappointment by any means. I think he still looked really good. So that's why I'm just saying it's kind of an honorable mention. Some people might be disappointed because they were expecting him to repeat as champion, but I never really felt that that was a likely outcome. Another minor disappointment I personally had was in regards to Kai Green's commentary. Now, I like Kai as a bodybuilder and respect him as a person, but he is just not well suited to commentating. It was the same thing last year where all he does is praise, praise, praise. I feel like he's so afraid of ruffling anybody's feathers, and as a result, I just feel that he doesn't offer much insight because he's constantly beating around the bush and he won't answer questions directly. It's that typical Kai Green style where you could ask him what color is the sky and he'll start philosophizing about the nature of the universe or some shit. So it's like, get to the point, man. Now, I did laugh, admittedly, at his little Simba versus Mufasa joke. What's that guy's name from The Lion King? When Dexter and Bonac came out for the finals. But it got less funny the third or fourth time he repeated it. Kind of wore that one thin. So as much as I like Kai as a bodybuilder, I really hope he doesn't do the commentating next year. I'd much rather see him compete in the show, and I think most of you would too. So now we come to my biggest disappointment, and yes, we're talking about the big bad wolf, who wasn't quite so big anymore, and that is largely the reason it was such a letdown. Now, I know he was coming back from a serious spinal injury, so it's true that given the circumstances, he looked pretty impressive. In terms of the physique, his conditioning was on point. It was exactly what you would expect to see from him because Dennis Wolf is known for that, but unfortunately, his trademark size just wasn't there anymore. His lats were extremely high and looked practically melted when he hit the back poses. His arms were way too undersized. Just his whole upper body, for that matter, needed a lot more mass to properly fill out his large frame. The only area that really looked up to par, I think, were his thighs, so that is why he placed so low. He was simply too lean. Now, I'm sure that after saying all that, I just pissed off a fair number of people. Hell, even just putting his picture in the thumbnail was surely enough to trigger a bunch of his fans, because, shit, man, you can't be critical of anything these days without offending a bunch of oversensitive PC pussies. But even if you're a huge Dennis Wolf supporter and were amazed with the state of his comeback, you got to admit that from an objective standpoint, his low placing was disappointing. I mean, he finished second last in the entire lineup. Well, technically third last if you want to count the one guy who didn't even finish and therefore didn't place. But to go from winning this very contest just 4 years ago to not even cracking the top 10, come on, man. Now, obviously in this situation, we have to be realistic and lower expectations, so it's not like I was expecting him to win or even make the top call-out, but I also certainly wasn't expecting to see him in the last call-out either, and I doubt many people were. So let's not sugarcoat it. It was a disappointing result. I think Wolf really needs at least another 6 months to a year, perhaps, to bulk back up and regain all his lost size, so maybe by the time the Olympia rolls around, we'll see him make a return to form. But anyway, guys, sorry to be a bit negative here, but I do think it's good to present both sides of the argument, the good and the bad. It's just food for thought and me sharing my honest impressions with you guys, so hopefully you can appreciate where I'm coming from. As always, thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm the Tominator, signing off, and I'll be back.